Yo, yo, GLT, thank you, Six. What's up, everybody? Good to be here. Thank you so much. Yeah, like Six said, we're going to be going over a bunch of things. Before we start, I want to say it may seem a little bit fast because I want to go over a whole bunch of stuff that are going to, a whole lot of practices that will help you in the long run. Basically making basic shapes and using Blender as best as I can explain it. And yeah, just want you to know that if you're trying to follow along now, maybe you might want to actually re-watch the video later where you can pause it. I'm going to have keystrokes on. The reason I'm showing you my entire screen is because it's not going to be just Blender. I have a bunch of things sitting there in the background that I'm going to try and whip through. I won't go too fast, but it'll definitely be too fast to follow in real time. So if you've got your Blender windows open, you can try follow along. But yeah, as I said, re-watch, use the pause. It will be your friend. Watch the keystrokes. Yeah, so we'll just dive straight into it. Basically, before jumping into Blender, Six is my good thing. Yo, is the stream's a bit blurry. Let me just see. Might be just you. Everybody.
I think it kind of goes in and out, like it blurs and it stops, blurs, stops.
It may be. Look, just 1 second.
This is pretty bizarre.
So it may be because I. Yeah. Discord rug. Let's see what happens. If it keeps happening, we might have to do something. I could move up into better reception, but I seem to have pretty good reception now, so it should be showing good. I do have Nifty Island going on in the background as well, so everything's going to add to it. I will slowly close these apps, but for now, is it okay to keep going?
Yeah, it's wrong.
Okay, cool. All right. So for those of you who don't know what I'm doing here, I'll give you a quick explanation before we dive into the skills. Basically, I have been making the Bloom Cathedral. The Bloom Cathedral is... Why can't I get it now? The Bloom Cathedral... Oh, it's not allowed me. Let me just turn off my key press. That's what it is. There we go. Okay. The Bloom Cathedral is very similar in its fashion to the Nifty build set, where it has pretty much all the same dimensions, very common dimensions, very common shapes, everything from stairs, walls, windows, everything has a shape, and they all fit together quite perfectly. And so when I built the Bloom Cathedral, I looked at the Nifty assets and I figured out what sizes they were. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about sizes. I'm going to talk about snapping points, and then in a couple of minutes we will go into how to actually do those things. I probably won't stay on island, but I just wanted to come on here to show you what you can do. There's literally, once you tap into these shapes, there are unlimited things you can do with different textures to bring them into the island. Another awesome thing about all of this is that they are super low geometry. So see this build weight up here? That's actually, it's really high because I've got all these tiny little candles and things like that were made in Meshi. But before I put them in, this island was extremely empty, and I've just got stuff all over here. So we're aiming to build low poly assets that work in game, that have seamless textures, and have very similar dimensions, if not exactly the same as various Nifty official assets. So one thing I want to do before I start is I'm going to show you something, a tool that I made that might help with asset creation. I'm going to include all of the links. I've got a bunch of links to share with you guys at the end, so I'll include them at the end of the workshop, or maybe halfway through if I've got the time, or I'll pop them up at the post when the video comes live. So I've created this thing, I'm calling it the unofficial Nifty ruler. And this thing is essentially just a snap-on ruler, right? And this can help you in so many ways. First of all, for all of you who are using imperial system as opposed to metric, all of these units here, these 1, 2, 3, 4, this is all in meters. So when using this ruler, we're talking meters. So you can see, for example, in this gap, we've got, you can read it quite nicely here. Sometimes you might want to shift things up so you can see it perfectly. You can quite literally use it to measure everything. So this this piece is a 4-meter square, and you can even put this sideways and measure how thick it is. Now I done this 1.08 of a meter. However, a lot of the assets, as you'll see in a second, are at their base 0.1. I had my own reasons for this, but the only reason I'm showing you this is because if you see an asset in game, such as these beautiful low poly assets that Nifty has created, you can use this ruler. I'll include the link at the end to find out various dimensions, and you can see, look at all these ways that it's been cut and moved. So yeah, the ruler was really helpful for me. Now I don't need it. So once you get used to the dimensions and things, you won't need that ruler. So yeah, sizes and dimensions. I'm going to quit this game because it'll probably be taking up bandwidth. So I get out of Nifty. It's done that thing. Nifty crash, fun times. Okay, there we go. So I've got a bunch of windows open, and I want you all to know that they are slowly going to close, and you're going to get less confused. I've tried to clean everything as much as I possibly can. Now, this is essentially the backbones of the Bloomthedral. And this over here, I'm going to move all these out of the way in a second. But these over here are some of the very common shapes. We've got roofs that all snap together. The basic square wall that I just showed you. Triangle bits for, joining in to make the steeper parts happen. Stairs, and I believe we can cover most of this in this tutorial. We might go a little over, I'm not sure. And then moving into things like cylinders and just really simple shapes like how to cut out windows using various tools. And then we might even tap into 3D slots just at the end as a little gift to the community, because I know a lot of people enjoy the 3D slots, and maybe we make a 2D slot for the window. I probably won't get into complicated shapes. I don't think we'll have the time for me to show you how to do that. But if you look up tessellated geometry, this is all maths, guys, and it's really simple maths, and you can actually look it up. It's all online. Again, I've got some cool websites to share with you. You can find pieces that all snap together perfectly inside games. So I'm going to get rid of them, and I'm going to move this right out the way. And I'm going to turn back on P press so you can see my shortcuts in a second. Before we go further, I want to show you how making simple shapes and all of the tools that you're going to learn in this workshop, I'm going to show you how they can be turned into, essentially, these are more complex shapes. So this is all just your imagination. These are all essentially the same shapes. We've got spheres, we've got octagons, everything is the same. And eventually you can learn how to do stuff like this. And this may look really hard, but once you get these concepts, you'll probably see that it's actually really easy. So I'm going to get out of this. That's just to show you where we can go with this. I'm going to move these to the side. And I'm going to turn on P press so that you guys can all see. There you go. And again, this may seem a little bit fast, so I'm going to try to be slow. But yes, rewatch. So before starting, there are a few things that I think are extremely important, especially when making snappable assets. The first thing is basically your scene. So over here on the right-hand side, there's this little piece here. This is the most recent version of Blender, by the way. And in here you have units. And units, so it's looking at metric right now. And I've got it down to 1 metric unit, meaning that each of these squares that you see is 1 meter squared. And each of these lines in between is 0.1. Okay, which means, as you can see with something like these, okay, it's not letting me use my numpad whilst with the key press, which is very annoying, but I think I'll get around it. Numpad is very important for viewing things flat, but we can get around it without that. So the first thing I do is I check that I've got the I've already set this all up, so you only need to do this once. Check that it's in metric. Make sure the unit scale is 1, so that everything fits together. And then what we're going to do is we're going to set up our scene. Your Blender might look completely different to this. It's a pretty general setup. You can create new windows if you want and make your own workspaces. We won't go too far into that. But basically, setting up a scene like this, I've got the modeling tab open and I've got this one window. You can choose here what windows to see. We are in the 3D viewport, the place where everything happens in regards to modeling and moving things around. Now, another thing, and the reason that units are really important, is we're going to turn on snapping. So what snapping means, basically, if you have it snap and set to closest and increment, and you can even set absolute grid snap if you're doing simple things. What this means is when you if you were to grab an object and move it around, see how it jumps in these boxes? It means that you're always going to be sitting on that perfect grid. So you can know while you're building that this is going to be how it is in Nifty when you're building in Nifty. So snapping is really important. See how I overlapped that there? Look at this. Boom. So yeah, snapping's super important. We turn that on. There are another couple of options that I like to have on. This really helps for higher statistics and selective, as I'll come into overlays. I'll turn in statistics, and this gives you all of the scene data. So for example, if I select an object, I can tell if there's one object selected. I can tell me how many vertices, triangles, faces. As you can see, this is super low poly. It's just a square. Cool. So we've set that up. There are a few tools that I use that I can share at the end. I'll give you a little tutorial on how to install add-ons, which I think is pretty important. And I'll do that at the end because I feel like I want to really just jump into geometry first. So let's start making things. I want to get through pretty much all of this. And 6, I might need you to help me not go over time too far because I will get sucked in so easy. We're already 20 minutes in. I feel like it's going to be a bombshell for people. So let's start making things. Okay. So let's make a wall. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure we're in object mode. You can use tab to switch between object and edit. Object mode is the place we're going to be adding in our new things. We're going to go Shift A and mesh, and we can find cube. It's up the top here, or we can just type cube and press enter. That has given us a cube. Down here you can see the dimensions. It's set to 2 meters. We know we're going to be doing a 4 meter thing, so we can just, I don't know why that's not letting me use enter. And I think my key press thing is really messing with my tools, but that's okay. So it didn't change the geometry. We can do it over here. So using N to bring up the the options, the item option, and we can come in here. It is already 4 meters, so it did work. We're going to choose the x-axis, and we're going to bring that down to 0.1. Too small? Oh no, so what was it? It was 0, it was 1. Too big, 0.5. I think mine were... That's nice, and so this is all up to you. This part is all up to you, but I would recommend staying in that 4 meter square dimension, because that is what is used very commonly across Nifty. You could also do it at 2 meters, but inside of the game you can shrink it down by 0.5 and it would become 2 meters. So I feel like squares, 4 meters squared is pretty good. So we've got an item, it's 4 meters, 0.5. There we go, we've got a wall, right? We're not going to jump into texturing yet, but how do we make this wall snappable? Let's just give it a quick color. We'll give it a new material and use nodes. Let's just give it a gray color. Good start. Okay. Seems simple, may seem boring, very important. Okay. So yeah, we've got a cube. It's sitting perfectly on the grid. I can G to grab it. I like to sit my things above the line. It just makes me feel better for whatever reason. We can use Shift D to duplicate it, bring it over. Now we've got 2. D to grab. Let's just give it a little bit more space, because remember, we're going to be making a bunch of things and they're all revolving around this square. So I want a few of these. Shift D, grab it along the Y. Let's do 4 for now. So yeah, so we've got a square. How can we make a triangle out of it? And how can we know that it's exactly like in the perfect dimensions where it's going to fit alongside that 4 meters? Well, it's really easy. Super easy, actually. So what we can do is we can use K. It's not allowing me. So you tab into edit mode, use K, which is a knife cut, and I can click down there on the one corner, drag it up, click there on the other corner, and press enter. We know now that that is a perfect diagonal cut. The bottom is 4 meters, the side is 4 meters. So we're going to do that on the other side. And just for everyone out there watching, these aren't the only ways you can do things. This is just a very simple way for you to do things. This isn't hard. The main reason I want to do this workshop is to show you all how easy it is. So I'm going to make sure it's in face select. To do that, we click 3, or you can click this up here. There are 3 different types of selections. You can use 1 to select the vertices, 2 to select the edges, and 3 to select the faces. We're going to be in face select. I'm going to start deleting these faces. It's really quick to move this using Z into wireframe. That way I can see right through, select all of these faces. Look, I missed some. And use X, delete faces, right? Come back into the material preview or the solid, doesn't matter. Material preview shows you what you have on the surface. I'm going to select up here the edge select tool with 2. Hold Alt and click on one of the edges to grab that whole thing. Now that doesn't work on complex geometry. This is just to select essentially large edge loops. If you can't select it like that, then you might want to select it something like that. Anyway, so we've got it selected. We're going to press F, and that fills it. Right? So now we have a perfect triangle. That is going to sit absolutely perfectly on top of that. Okay. Again, seems boring, super important. So let's make one of these. Let's make like the rampart wall that you saw on the Bloom Cathedral, for like a castle edge, right? So we're going to select this, tab into edit mode, press Control R, and it's going to give you this. You've got to hover in the right place sometimes, so you can go horizontally or you can go vertically. And you use the scroll wheel before clicking and you can give it as many cuts as you want. So for example, if I do this many and then click, then I have these cuts. And when I have these cuts, I can select various faces in face select, and I can extrude them up or down. If you do it down, you're going to end up with this extrude as like it moves the faces, but not necessarily the whole thing. I like using extrude for my own reasons, so I'm just going to show you what I do. So I would choose the ones that I want to go up, and I extrude them up, right? And then I would Control A, apply all, but I don't like applying location because it moves the origin point. Press N, and then you can see the dimensions have changed because we extruded it up 1 meter. So I can just grab that, change that to 4 meters, and now we have what will be, oops, it's really frustrating that I can't use all my keys right now, but whatever. It will be the perfect fit for, there we go. Might have to turn on grid snap. It will be the perfect fit. Okay, sometimes this can be very, without having the numpad, I'm kind of going to be a little bit lost from time to time. But instead of using the size over there, there's another method we can do, which is wireframe. In wireframe, select edit mode. Let's grab the edges and grab them down. Oops. Grab them down 1. So you can see there's those 4. See 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 1 meter, 2 meter, 3 meter, 4 meter. So we know now that it is fitting exactly in that same matrix we're creating, right? And we know that we can grab it and put it up here. Okay. So we've just successfully created something. With those 3 shapes, you could create essentially an entire wall. But we're going to go deeper. We're going to start, we need to start figuring out ways like, let's make a roof. Like, how are you going to, what's this shape going to be without a roof, right? We made that so that we can make a roof. Well, I've come up with a really quick way to make a roof. So what we're going to do is I'm going to separate these just so they can be seen very easily. And we're going to use the angle of this triangle to make the roof. So we've selected it in object mode. We're going to tab, edit mode. Make sure we're in face select using 3. Click. So we've got that top face. We're going to shift D for duplicate. And I like to press Z so it's on the same. So you can select axes using X, Y, or Z. So I just selected the Z axis. So now we know we've got that perfect angle. We know that it's absolutely perfect. Now this is still part of that object, so I'm going to press P to separate and just go selection. Now that it's its own object, we are going to tab back into edit mode, press A to grab it all. I'm going to switch here. And we're going to use E to extrude. And we're going to extrude it, let's say 0.3. You can see here as well. See, 1, 2, 3. So that's 0.3 of a meter. So we know that that is now 0.3. So we can select it in our object. Now there's a couple of ways you can do this. You could just select this, look at it from this angle, grab it using G, and then drag it to the desired width. But remember that we have that tool. Pressing N, bringing up the tool menu, we can see that it's still 0.5 meters because that's the thickness we're playing with. So let's change this to 4. Let's go back to that 4. Now it doesn't look like it's 4 meters because this because when you look at it like that, it's not actually square. Don't know how to explain that, but basically the length here between the diagonal of the square is a lot longer than 4 meters, and it's not showing accurately here because this doesn't measure the diagonal, right? But we can know for sure that that is 4 meters by dragging it along. And let's rotate one of these. So I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to press R to rotate on the Z axis and go 90, type in 90 for 90 degrees. I'm going to drag it along the X. Let's just drag it into place to make a corner. Let's grab this one, bring it down. And then let's grab this one, bring it down. And look at that. So that's essentially, that's how easy it is to make the first panels. Now, one thing you'll see is these gaps here. And this is kind of up to the user. What we're going to be doing is a lot of people, there's a couple different ways to make snap points. For example, someone might put one in the middle of this, and then another person might want their snap points on the vertices. And it really depends on what you're making. But in the nifty official ones, they put it in the same place that I put it in the same place as they do, which is in the middle of these. And the reason I do that is because of the way that the UVs overlap when you fit items together. And you'll notice that the nifty set and my set as well, I've created separate items that kind of click onto the corners or onto the edges of the roof that that cover up that join point. But again, snap points are snap points. You can make them wherever you want on an item, and that's part of the fun. So yeah, we've got a simple structure there. We've got a rampart. We've got a square wall. Let's make a. Let's see. Let's have a little look over here. Let's make a door or a window. So reasonably easy. Okay. Basically, you can use any shape because this is such a simple geometry. You could use any shape to cut a hole using a Boolean modifier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play around a bit and just use a random shape. Maybe I could just... So, okay, I know what I'm going to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go Shift S to go cursor to selected. That way I know that when I drop a shape in, it's going to drop directly in the middle of this object. I'm already in object mode. You have to do this in object mode, not edit. I'm going to go Shift A. And I'm going to choose, let's go a cylinder for fun. It doesn't have to be the perfect door. So it's come in, you can choose your vertices. The higher the vertices, the higher the triangles. We're going to reduce this down to, let's say 12. And then I'm going to press R to rotate, Y to rotate along the green axis, and then 90 so that I know it's perfectly face on. Now I'm going to grab this down because I'm trying to make a door. And so that way it's kind of like, you know, right in the middle, and I know that it's going through the object. And now we're going to modify this to look kind of like an archway. Not perfect, but again, this is just the simple stuff. So I'm going to make sure that's selected, press Tab to enter edit mode, press 2 to have edge select, and I'm going to grab that top edge. Now I could just use G and grab this up, but it's just going to only move that one. So I like to use this tool. It's proportional editing. If you click that on, basically when you use G now, it moves more than one vertex. And you can change the size of how many, like the distance on how many are being affected by the moves. So let's go grab Z. That's kind of nice. Bit eggy. Let's go scale this whole thing because but I'll do it on the Y. So scale on the Y. Grab it along. Let's do. What I'm going to do is I want this to look more like a door. So I'm going to delete these. Oops. Delete vertices. Yep. And then I'm going to grab these two. And I'm going to press E for extrude, Z to go down, and I'm going to extrude them down. Simple as that. Let's join them. using F, and look at that. We have something that we're going to use to cut out a door. So let's cut it out. I'm going to go into object mode. I'm going to select the item that we are cutting. And we're going to come over here to modifiers, add modifier, and you can just start typing in BOO for Boolean. Right? It comes up with this. If you click this eyedropper tool, you can select the thing that you want it to cut with. And there you go. It's going to cut that out. Right? Now, sometimes using crazy geometry, it might cut it wrong. So it can really help to select this and hide it to make sure that it's not doing anything trippy. So I'll just go, I feel like you might not have seen that. You can use H to hide. And then we need to apply you can apply all, but I recommend just learning how to do all the steps. So we're going to apply that modifier. And there we have it. We have a door cut. The same process can be used for windows. Of also, you can do anything. You could even cut it. You could cut it using this object, and that's why I put it there, just to remind people that there's lots of shapes that you can cut into things, and that's how you get really creative. But right now, what we're doing is the simple stuff. So let's play around with this door a little bit, because obviously we don't just want something cut into the wall like that, right? So what I like to do is I'll tab and object mode, select the object we're playing with, tab into edit mode, and you can see that everything that was selected before, it's just cut this new hole. So you have this part that's not selected. So what I can do is press Control I to invert the selection, except I need to be in face mode. So I'm going to make sure I'm in face, select, and then Control I to invert selection. And now we have that bit. We've got control over those faces, right? We could do this, but we've got proportional editing on. So anything we do is going to be messed up because it's going to move the whole thing. So we're going to turn that off. And now, if we were to do things, it's still going to play with things, right? So like if I scale this on the X, you'll see that it makes the whole thing wider. We don't want that. We want to make a door frame and possibly in the future make doors as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate that. And then now that we've got this little separate bit, I'm going to press P like we did before, separate, and use selection. Now we have this little door frame bit, and we can now play with this in a bunch of ways. So I could show you a variety of ways to do this. I'm going to show you what I would say is the easy way, though it is not the perfect way. You would like, I think it's handy to know this tool. It's another modifier tool, and yeah, usually I would actually extrude these faces as we have been doing. You could just extrude them E and then S and extrude them in, or you could come in here, generate a solidify, and that's going to basically solidify it. Before it was a plane, and now it is a solid object. I don't quite like what that's doing. It'll be because of the geometry, so we can play around and try and get it right. Obviously, things sometimes don't work out like you want them to, but that looks pretty good. So complex. So just for this shape, that worked. Complex, fill 0.1 meters, and we've got a door frame. Now, the door frame is sitting inside, and we kind of want it to stick out, right? So we're going to scale it along the X just a bit so that it pops out. Now, I'd be spending a lot more time on this if I wasn't trying to fit in as much as possible, but for the purpose of this, we're just going to leave it like that. Right, so I'm going to apply that thing here, and just for visual pleasure and to like move this on a little bit, I'm going to start adding some textures so you can really see the difference. I would prefer to actually just make another one here and just use a color for the start of it, like just so that I could just so that I could like, what's happening here? Assign, just so that I can see it better without like going into the PBR materials or making textures. But for the purpose of this and making it look pretty, I think we're going to do that. But you can see here there's an overlapping UV, and we don't want that. So I'm just going to scale this just a slight. I'll scale it on a little bit, and then grab it and just like make sure that it's pretty much right there on the line. So yeah, so let's add a texture. There's this beautiful free add-on called Blender Kit, and this is where I get most of my textures from. You can search free PBR materials online, and I'd recommend finding as many resources as you can. But for the purpose of this, there's this beautiful thing called Blender Kit. I've changed my mind. I'm not going to show you how to install things because you can just look that up on YouTube. So you need to be able to install your add-ons. But yeah, we've got this beautiful thing called Blender Kit. You need to be connected to the internet to use this. You need to click this little, so this, we're doing materials. That's the symbol for materials, as you can see down here. So we're going to make sure that materials are selected. We're going to turn on the eye. And then you can type in, I've typed in PBR, but you can type in anything here. So let's go brick PBR. And look at that, you've got all these assets that you can use. So let's just pop one on here. Look at that. And let's just do, I don't know, some other stone edge. Oh, it's a door, so let's do some wood. Just go. I'll rush through it because I don't want to be perfect about this. The point is that you can find a bunch of stuff online and you can use it. Now, I wouldn't settle with this. You can do a lot better job, but this is just the tutorial. So fun things, let's learn how to link materials. We want this across all of these pieces. So let's select these two, hold shift, select this one, hold shift, select this one. And then the last one to select is the one with the material you want, shift that one. You can tell which one is the last one you selected because it's got this golden outline, and the rest have kind of like a dark orange. Control L to link, and link materials, right? Now these look like this because we haven't played with the UVs yet. The quick way to do it is to just select one of these, unwrap using U, and just go cube projection. Right, we'll do it with this one as well because this one is looking like it's 2 times. Unwrap, cube projection. So now, hopefully, if we got it right, this should match up perfectly with this. And it not, we didn't get it right. And so that's something that you need to learn is that because of this bizarre shape here, and the fact that we've unwrapped this onto a cube is that it hasn't treated it perfectly like a cube. So let's try fix that really quickly. U, cube projection, we'll have a look at this. Correct aspect, clip to bounds, scale to bounds. You can kind of play with these things. Oh. But sometimes they won't work for the thing that you're doing. So instead, we're going to do we're going to go right face on. You can also use 1 on your numpad, but like I said, I can't use 1 at the moment. We're going to go tab to edit mode, make sure the whole thing is selected. We're going to go U for unwrap, and this time we're going to go project from view, bounds, because we know it's 4 meters. There you go. So what that's done is basically, that shouldn't be showing. I'm just going to pop into the shader editor. Don't mind what I'm doing. I'm not going to be teaching you heaps about shading right now, but the shader editor is where you can see all of your materials. And so these are the materials that are being shown. Let's just get rid of this so you're not getting too confused. And right now, the color of the bricks is coming on here, as you can see. As soon as I remove it, it doesn't go on anymore. So basically, what we just did is we unwrapped this onto the square. So by default, all these PBR textures are they're all squares. So this is a 4K texture. It's 4096, 4096, and we have a perfect square. And so when we unwrapped it on that view, like straight on, unwrap project from view bounds, it's taken what we see directly on our camera and put it perfectly on that square. So it really depends on the object you're unwrapping and how you want it to look. But there's a bunch of unwrap tools in here, and they'll all be used for different reasons. So let's do the same thing with this one. Let's go tab. We're going to go to that front view, edit all, and you can see right here that as I change this, it changes the way that the UV is, the way that the texture is showing on our object, right? So we're going to unwrap this the same way, project from view bounds. Now we have a perfect brick wall. Let's do the same here. All, unwrap, project from bounds, grab to the edit mode. Boom. Okay. So that's kind of the basic way of cutting, some really simple objects up and giving them a texture. Now, the reason I'm doing PBR is because I'm not going to be showing you how to bake textures, and these PBR textures don't have to be baked. They are, however, in 4K, and you may not want to use a 4K. There are tools that you can download that will allow you to change the size of the images, or you can do it outside of the program as well. Just resize your images and bring them in and lay them onto your pieces. But so we don't have to go super into that because we're using PBR textures, and the reason I'm doing that is for that exact reason. You could grab this, export that wall, and it would show up basically show up in game with that texture. If you weren't using PBR, like if you were using a generative or a procedural material, which is basically like using math and it's not loading right now. If you use, there's a bunch of things in here. There you go. Procedural velvet. This is just a quick explanation. I don't know why it's not loading. It's probably taking its sweet time. There you go. So that texture will not show up in game because it is using math essentially, and you can even see it in the shading tab when I have that selected. Let's zoom out. I'll show you what it looks like when it's procedural. See what I mean? And so to get that into game, you would have to bake all of the textures, and we're not going to even begin to go into that. So, however, there are some pros out there that know how to do this. So if you ever do want to jump into procedural stuff or just learning how to bake textures in general, people can help. Olivia is really good at it. I can do it. There's a few people that I know can do it really well. Misfit can bake. I just know. I'm not going to start rattling off names because I feel like I'd go for a while. But you get the gist. So let's make some more things. What's the time looking like? Okay, we're almost at an hour. So let's do some fun things. We've done a roof. Let's actually first, before we move on, let's figure out how to make a door. So what I can do is select this object. I'm going to Shift D to duplicate, grab it on the Y, so it's over here. And then how are we going to make this door? There's a bunch of ways you can do this, really. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to be in edit mode, Control R, find that little loop cut there, scroll once so that it's got that edge, and see how you can move it around. I'm just going to press escape so that it stays right in the middle. And then we're going to tab into face select. We're going to go Alt and hit that. And unfortunately, it's grabbed the outside as well. So I might just do it myself. I'm just going to hold Shift, select these surfaces. Oops. No, that's not how we're going to do it. So again, there's a bunch of ways you can do this, but I'm going to do it a different way. I'm going to use 1 instead for vertices. I'm going to click this one, press F. That way I've kind of created this closed line. I'm going to do it on the other one as well. F. Now we've got the base for a door, so let's press. No worries later, Jay. Good game. See you soon. So let's select. How are we doing this? I'm gonna. Sorry, it gets really confusing sometimes. Probably watching this, and you're like, "Whoa, how am I supposed to move around like this?" This may not be the best way to do it, but I want the door to be the exact same shape as this. And the reason actually that I think it's probably a good idea that we do it like this is because it's going to teach you that out of every single shape you make, you can kind of you can make something else. So let's keep selecting these edges. Grab this one. So now we have a perfect fit, and we're going to duplicate that. We're going to drag it on the X so that it's out. We're going to press P to separate selection, and now we have the selection here. I'm going to tab into edit mode, press A, and press F. Now we have a very simple plane, and this is still 2D, so we're going to do like what we did before. We're going to add a modifier. We're going to solidify it, and let's make this 0.05 maybe. What's the size of a door? Now, sometimes, because we've just transformed this, you might need to Control A. I'm just going to do it just for the sake of it, and apply all. See how that worked. And whenever I do that, I'm going to unclick the location because, like I said before, it changes the origin point. So there we have it. You can change the size as much as you want to. Oops. You can change the size as much as you want here. So for any shape you're making, you can do this, but remember we're making a door. So that's the first step. We're going to apply that. And then let's cut this down the middle. So tab, we're going to go into vertices select, and we're going to cut down the bottom. You can press Z to get this perfectly straight. See that? And then click enter. Now we know we've got it perfectly in half. We can switch around to the other side. This is where having a numpad is really helpful. So it's like what you're learning is to navigate through 3D space constantly. And it can be really daunting, but eventually you get really the hang of it. I wish I knew more about the key presses because I'd love to turn off some of these things. Anyway, we're going to press K, hit that vertice at the top, press Z so that it's going down, enter, select. Now we've cut that essentially in half. So we could, for the sake of this video, let's just do a little in wireframe mode. We're going to grab these vertices and we're going to, X, delete vertices. And now we've got this half a door, right? Now you'll notice it's missing some faces down here. So let's fix that. I'm going to select these vertices, press F to join that gap. Hold Shift, select these ones, press F to join it to make a face. And then you could sometimes you can just press F again. Oops, what just happened? F, and it should be able to tell that there's this other space to fill. So F, and it just filled the space for us. Now we've got this single door. For fun, I'm going to press Q to, I've set my hotkey to Q, but it's basically set origin, so I won't use Q actually. Object, set origin, origin to geometry. And that basically puts its origin point in the middle or wherever it thinks the geometry's middle is. And now that we've done that, I'm going to go Shift S to move my cursor to selected, and then my cursor is here, kind of around about the middle of the object in geometry speak, maybe. We're going to Shift A. We're going to add a sphere. Oops, sorry, Shift A, we're going to go a UV sphere. And remember, this is a low poly game, so let's just do 12. And maybe 12. Okay. If you haven't picked up what I'm doing, I'm making a door handle. So holding control, you can get fine movements. Remember that we've got grid snap on. So in some cases, you don't want it to snap to the grid, and we don't want that in this situation. So we're just going to do this, right? I am going to rotate this along the y-axis 90 because I want that facing. I'm going to grab it on the x-axis. Let's go back here. No. I'm going to get out of the shading tab because it's not showing you. See, it's giving you this world view. So I'm just going to go back to the modeling. See how all these different tabs have different setups. You can set them up however you want, essentially. But I wanted to be able to illustrate how important it is to have these grids. So S to scale. And this is another fun thing, actually, while we're on scaling and things like this. So with the snap points, you can have this, you can affect just moving, or you can select scale as well. So what you saw just then is as I was scaling it, it was snapping in increments. So this can be really handy for when you're doing a square and you want to scale it perfectly along the increments that we're essentially going for. So there we go. We've got the basis of a door handle. I'm not going to try and make this look perfect. I'm just going to move it to somewhere I think is good. Let's hide this, select it, or don't even hide it. We've got snapping on, so I can just move it out of the way. I want to see the back of this handle. I want to select that, and let's just go face select and select these faces. Press E, and we're going to choose X, and then hold Control. And then what we can do is actually make that a bit smaller. And then while it's selected, and this is a really handy tool, Shift S, cursor to selected, go back to object mode, set origin to 3D cursor. It's just moved its origin to point to here. Now, when we use the, we're going to go into the modifier tab, add modifier. We're going to use mirror modifier. This is another really fun and super useful modifier that I use a lot. So at the moment, it's mirroring along the X. We want it to mirror along the, actually, so we need, it might be confusing at first, but remember we rotated this object, so we're going to have to apply rotation. That way it knows which way to send the mirror. And we've just essentially made a door handle. And so we can apply this. Let's drag this back down. And if we want this perfectly in the middle, we can, like whenever you want an object to snap to another object, remember how we set this and it's kind of in a good spot. We can cursor to selected, and then we can choose this. We go selection to cursor. And that means that it's perfect on either side of the door. We're going to move it back using the Y, grab Z. There we have it, a door handle. And again, now we could do something like, instead of using this, maybe we come over here, we can give it a texture, new, use nodes, and let's give it like a brassy look. Turn up the metallic, turn up the roughness. Now it's a bit shiny, but you can see it's got these kind of jagged edges. We're going for low poly. What you can do is you can right click and shade smooth. And that's pretty good. Give this a little wood, a little bit of wood on this door, a different one. Let's go for something random. It doesn't matter anymore. Wow, look at that crazy door. I wouldn't do it like that, but that's how easy it is to texture things. Let's go something different because it's just going to bug me for sure. Why is that not working? There we go. Again, this is like a whole journey. Texturing your items is a whole journey, and we're not here for that. We're doing snap points. We're doing common we're doing common shapes. I'm showing how to cut things out and essentially move from common to a little bit more complicated. So let's keep going. So that's how you can make objects fit. The cool thing about this is that you can put a snap point here or wherever and make snap points inside the doorway so that you can, in game, you can choose to have no door, or you can snap it in place, or you could just put it in place, for example, right now, and have it like just have it there. But I like to make everything modular. Oops. So that's why I like to separate all the bits. So let's keep going. What else is in here? We're doing quite well. Let's play around with. I'm just trying to remember all of the things that I've got on my list. Let's do snap points first, because I feel like that's super important. It's one of the reasons we're here. Without these little snap points, none of this truly matters. You'll be putting it in game, and you'll be lost as to why it takes so long to get things in place. So let's make snap points. These are what they look like. These little bad boys here. And as you can see, I put them directly in the middle. So let's just do it on this one that I've already made. I'm going to get this out the way. Delete those bad boys. I'm going to select the object that we want to put the snap points on. Tab into edit mode. And now you can see that the geometry here has changed. It's because of it's basically Blender is like that is just that's in how to explain it without sounding like an idiot. This is super simple, but it's missing some of the geometry. And what happens is when you export it, it essentially adds extra geometry in there without changing the shape of it. It puts all these lines in so that it worked well, for example, in things like Nifty. I'm pretty sure you can change that and how that does that, but you could do the same thing by selecting this and pressing Control T, and it would triangulate your faces for you. However, I find that when I export it, it does a good enough job, so I don't really worry myself too much with that because these are such low poly assets. So in this case, it has added all this other geometry, but we're not looking at that. We're just looking at this one line here. Sorry, I'm going to be in edge mode, so pressing 2 for edge mode, selecting the line. Shift S, cursor to selected. Now you can see the cursors there. To add a snap point or to add an axis, we need to be in object mode. So Tab, Shift A, and we're going to go snap. Oh no, sorry, axis. And we go enter, and it's added one. Now, remember we've got snapping on. You could go around and select all these. For those octagons and stuff you saw before, you would have to select each edge and do that process every single time. For complicated objects, you might have to do that. However, we've got snapping turned on. We know that this is inside of the measurements. So basically, what we want to do is, in order for Nifty to recognize these, we're going to rename it. So F2 is rename. And we're going to go ni_snap. Press enter. So that is now, that would now snap. But we want them on all corners. So I'm going to Shift D to duplicate, Z to move it down, and 1, 2, 3, 4 meters. See that? 1, 2, 3, 4. So it snaps perfectly to the corner of the object. Now I can select both of these, Shift D on the Y, and boom, we have the 4 snap points. So it takes a little while to get used to adding them, but once you get good at it, super fast, super easy. You can also, right at the start, before we even made these things, you could just do this to the first one, and then, and so like I could do this to this one and duplicate all of them at the same time, and then work on my object and not have to add those snap points again. Or I could grab these snap points, and I could essentially, like, let's go this one, cursor to selected, and then I'm going to grab these snap points, knowing that they're all perfect. We're going to go Shift S, selection to cursor, keep offset, and it just pops them right there on the grid. So there's so many ways to do these things right, you know. So let's let's add snap points to all these really quickly. We're going to move this. We're going to move this. We're going to move this out the way. We're going to give these some space. So for the triangle, let's just grab these three. Duplicate, Z, grab Y, triangle snap points. Done. You see how easy it is. Y, done. Now for the door, it's a little bit different. You might want to, it's up to you where you put the snap point, but I was putting it, we're just going to delete those. We don't need them. I usually put it in the middle. So I would go cursor to selected, Shift A, axes, F2, snap, right? And then we can grab that and duplicate it along the X. Now we know that it's, didn't work because we've resized this. But if I had left that in situ, it would have worked. Instead, we could go, well, we won't do that. You get the idea. If I had done this in situation, then this corner of this would be exactly on that snap point, but we're not going to mess around with that. I feel like that's just wasting time. You will probably figure that out if you've got this far. So yeah, those are the basics. With these simple things, let's give this quick tile. Anything to make it look. Grass roof. Unwrap, cube projection, boom. Unwrap, cube projection, boom. Okay, so in game, you should now be able to essentially make entire houses with this. Those are just the simplest ones. There's a bunch of shapes and different things you can do. So for example, with those very same shapes, I'm just going to go all the way over here. Oh no, I've hidden it. Let's see, where is it? Yep. Where is it? Why can't I see them? Oh, I deleted them. No, there they are. With all of those very processes, like everything that I just showed you, essentially all of these pieces have been made using those processes. Same with the windows. I've boolean cut out the windows using a square. Everything here is essentially the same process. So if you can nail what I've just shown you, you can do anything here. Same with the angles on the roof. That's just all maths, right? So yeah, that's the basics of it. You can start doing things like if you've played with the Bloom Cathedral, I really liked putting 2D slots in the windows. So maybe I could show you that right now. Let's hide this again so that you're not getting so that I'm not getting confused with a big Bloom Cathedral in my face. 2D snap slots. So let's so the reason there's a snap point here is because in one of the walls I've made a snap point in the window part, so that you can choose to not have the window frame, choose to not have the 2D slot, or like there's a bunch of things you can do. So having it modular, I think, is like the really important thing, right? That's the realm we're stepping into. But so just forget about that. In fact, I might just hide it. And we're going to put a plane in this that we're going to use as a 2D slot. So we're going to make sure that the origin is essentially in the middle. We're going to go Shift A, making sure it's in object mode. I'm going to go plane. And, oh, sorry, we're going to move our cursor to here. So Shift S, cursor to selected, Shift A, plane. There it is. There's our plane. We're going to rotate it along the Y, 90. And you can see that it spills over the edges. I'm just going to, remembering that this is going to be in the wall, we're just going to scale this up because the side of the image doesn't matter to me much right now. That's up to your preferences. We are going to F2 and rename this oops, caps lock on NI underscore slot 2D. And that creates a snappable slot for your pictures in game. Now, if you wanted to, you could make, for example, a mullion. I think that's what they're called. Forgotten. So let's just grab this out the way because we know that we can pop that in there later. We know our 3D cursor is here, so let's Shift A, add a cube. Whoa, bring it right down, and then scale it on the Z. Right, duplicate it, rotate 90 on the X, and scale it on the X. Oh, sorry, scale it on the Y. So now we've got a little window mullion. Like we did before, we can grab both of them. So here's something interesting. This is what you could use Boolean for again. See how these are overlapping? In game, that'll show up. That's an overlapping UV, essentially. Overlapping face, sorry. So it's doubling up the faces. It doesn't know they're on the exact same plane. It doesn't know quite what to show you. So a quick fix for that would just be to scale this just a tiny bit now that the faces aren't overlapping. So let's select both of them, select the wood that we're using, Control L materials, and boom. Again, when we've transformed this, it has changed the UVs, and this is going to be a little bit annoying to show you because this is a baked object, so I actually I probably won't be able to show you as good, but essentially you can use that unwrap function to unwrap your material. And where is it? Well, because it's baked, it's all wrong. So just even forget what I'm saying right now and just use, like we were doing before, let's just use a new texture. Anything, just for the purposes of this tutorial, anything. Shift, left, Shift, left click, Control L, materials, boom. Okay. So if we know that this is now ready to go, I feel like we're going to be cutting into time if I keep going too far. If we know this is ready to go and we've got all the snap points, we need to export this. I like working in big batch files, so it can be a little bit confusing when it comes to exporting. So I'll give you a quick rundown on how I export things. Before we do that, yeah, I would be grabbing this, moving it back in because we want this to be a 2D slot, make some stained glass or something like that. And I would be doing the process I did before and putting the snap points on here, but I feel like I've just showed you that, so I won't show you again. What I'm going to do is this, and remember this has to be a PBR material, otherwise you have to bake it. So in this case, we can check by going over to shading. We can click the thing, we can bring up the shader editor, and you can see that, look, it's not at all a PBR. So all of these extra things, Nifty won't be able to tell you, it won't be able to know exactly what to do. So let's give it a PBR texture quickly. Let's just give it this one. So quick little tip, all of these, if you're searching on the net, make sure that the materials, textures you're using are all free to use with CC0, so or CC0. So these are all open for anyone to use in any way. And again, this is called Blender Kit, and I will put the links to a bunch of things at the end of this. But yeah, this is totally free to use. It's taking its sweet time downloading. Okay, that actually looks quite nice. So let's link those materials. Okay, so yep, you can check in here that it's just the image textures, and this tells it where to go on the object. So we can safely assume that we've done all right with this window. Because these are all the same textures and we're trying to make as lesser objects as possible, we're going to shift select all these three things and we're going to join it, Control J. In this case, look, it's changed the UVs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go face on, and I'm going to just see what it looks like with project from view. And right now, you can see that stretched. I probably wouldn't do that. Unwrap cube detection. Okay, that's good enough for me, but not enough now. So we have a single object now. We want the origin point to be in the middle of this object. So we're going to go object, set origin, origin to geometry. So that's as close to the middle as possible. We're going to go Shift S. We're going to put the cursor in the middle of that object, right? And then we're going to make sure that this 2D plane essentially is snapped directly to the center, because if you bring in two objects that have into Nifty that have a different origin point, then the game can get really confused. Sometimes it pops them over here, or sometimes when you're moving them around in Nifty space, let's say building things, it won't know quite how to put them, or if you're copying objects, it will just start to bug out. So we want it essentially to be directly in the middle. We want both of these things, these two assets, these two items, to share the same origin point. Or be in the same space, have their origin point in the same space so that they don't jump around on us. So we're going to click the 2D plane and Shift S and just go selection to cursor. And you can see it didn't move because it already was in the right spot. But let's say it was just up there, selection to cursor, boom. So now we know that the origin points are all in the middle. We have one object, two object. So we're going to pretend. I'm going to go back to UV editing. Oh, sorry, let's go modeling. So another helpful tip, quite necessary. I'm going to go get out of this, back into object mode. I'm just going to move these out the way. Is to return your items to the world origin before you export them. And this messed with me heaps because I'm doing big batch processes. There is a way to do this with certain exporting programs, but again, big stuff. So let's just export a single simple object. So we're going to go Shift S, cursor to world origin. So it's our little dot pieces in there. We're going to select the one we want to export. Shift S, selection to cursor, keep offset. Now we know it's perfectly in the middle. I have hotkeyed the export, but you won't have it like this, so I won't give you my hotkeys. I go File, Export, GLB. I prefer GLBs for my own reasons. We're going to go Include and make sure that Selected Objects is ticked. If you don't click that, and it doesn't have it ticked on by default, if you don't click that, you can save this as your operator preset. But if you don't click that, it's going to export all of the things in the entire Blender file, right? So you're only wanting to do those. So we're selecting them, we're exporting them as a GLB, and then we're including selected objects. I'm going to put it on the desktop so it's easy for me to find, and we're going to export it. Now, where is it? It's funny. Export, include, selected objects. Okay, I wonder if that is because of... That's super weird. Oh, it's because it's because I've exported a bunch of things today from the same file, so it's choosing ruler. So let's just rename this window 2D slot. Export. And here's one of the fun sites that I always use before uploading to Blender. It is called 3D Viewer, online 3D Viewer. And so when you upload this into the Forge, you might get a bunch of issues, or you might have missing materials or textures or whatever. So I will very often use this, unless I'm damn sure that I did a good job. I will use this because, unlike the Forge, it'll take you a couple seconds. And so it's showing us the 2D slot right now, but in game that's going to be that nifty palm. So we can safely assume that that is good for upload. Now, same thing with all of these snappable assets. So we're going to make sure, see how the origin point was slightly off there. So we're going to click the one that we know we have in the center. We're going to go cursor to selected. We're going to select the door, which was slightly off. We're going to go object, set origin to 3D cursor. It's moved the origin. We're going to select this, including the snap slots, and we are going to go object, Shift S, selection to cursor, keep offset. Oops, we've already moved the cursor there. We're going to go cursor to world origin and selection to cursor, keep offset. Now, remember it's selected, so I'm just batch exporting right now. I can just get rid of this, but you could have just exported that even though it was sitting over the top of it, but I'm just getting rid of it so you can see what I'm doing. So we've got it all selected. Go export, selected objects, rename it door or wall, brick, door. You can call it whatever you want. Now same deal here. Let's see if it works. Cool. So it worked, but it doesn't know where the how the UV maps unwrapping. And this is a really good thing that's happened right now, because basically you're going to be frustrated as going, wait, I'm sure I got it right. It looks right in Blender. Well, I'm glad that happened because it's going to show us a couple of things. So if we select this wall and we come down to the data properties and we click UV maps, we can see it's got 2 UV maps. So if I delete this auto map, that's the one, the top UV map is the one that's getting put onto the item, right? So I'm going to go Control Z. I'm going to delete that one. You only need 1 map per item. Same here. We're going to delete that top one. We're going to now export them. File, export, GLB. Wall, brick, door. Select objects, export. See how important it was for me to upload this? I would have just spent 5 minutes uploading that to the Forge and then have it wrong. So I can also see things like, I don't like the reflection of that. It looks too metallic. So I would go into the shader editor and change a bunch of stuff. But yeah, that's the basic gist, really. How much time do we have left? We've got another half an hour. I could I might just do a couple more items if that's okay. 6, that's all good, eh?
Yeah, of course.
Yep. All right. So introducing 3D slot. So this here is the bloom pedestal. Basically, this is a cylinder that I've made. I made this out of a cylinder. So what we're going to do is we're going to tab into this, and we're going to make some kind of. So sorry, I should slow down a little bit. Control R for the loop cuts. Scroll up, click, press escape so that it puts them where we want them. And then I'm going to make sure edge select is selected. Select one of those edges, turn on proportional editing. This might be too large. I might change this to 1 meter. And I'm going to scale that and see what happens. That's a good start. Let's grab this one, scale that, see what happens. Cool. That's kind of nice. You can grab this one. You can press G to grab it all together, or you can press G and it will slide. It's slide along the edges. So I kind of want to do that. Now let's have some fun playing with some other tools. So let's Alt select this line up the top. Press Control B to bevel. and it's added an extra cut there. I don't too much like the angle of this, so GG everyone. I'm going to turn off proportional editing and just scale this down a little bit. Scale this down a bit. GG. GG. Yeah. So there you go. So that's kind of like the basis of it. I'm going to select this face. I'm going to use E for extrude, and I'm going to scale it in just a little bit. You can use Control for that fine movement. And then I'm going to go extrude again, Z, and I'm going to bring it down to make that bowl. Let's use S to scale it just a little bit and give it an angle. And there you have it. We've got something along the lines of a pedestal. We can texture this like we were before. Quick, fun texture thing is let's give this 2 textures, right? So we're gonna go new in the materials tab. We're gonna go new. We're gonna call this one water. Now this is this really simple way of doing it, and I would probably do a lot more than just this, but just for fun, I'm going to nodes, base color, blue, and we're going to tab into edit mode, have that face selected, and assign, just so that this face is selected with the water. We're going to go Control I to invert the selection, make a new material. We're going to call this one pedestal. And now when we go into the Blender kit, where is it? Sometimes does this to me. Where is it? It's very easy to get lost when you have a big file. I would recommend not starting with so many things. Now when we have this pedestal selected, we can find a rock texture. So rock.pbr, load it up, and let's just put something random in there. Take this time. Come on. Okay, so for whatever reason it dropped it on there. Let's just select this again. It's changed the name, but that's okay. We're just going to rename this one water. And we're going to do the same thing we did before. Give it a blue and assign it. Now it's water, so let's give it a little bit of a metallic tint and put some roughness in there so that it's kind of shiny. Now that is the most basic way you can do it. I'll show you transparency in a second for windows, and you can do the same thing with the water. But in this case, I just wanted to show you some of the common tools like the bevel tool, the way to shrink things, and how to get like a more complicated object out of just a simple cylindrical shape. So it's super easy. You just play around, like rotate, scale, grab, bevel, essentially almost feels like almost all of the tools that you truly need. So let's add a 3D slot to this. So we know that the origin is in the center, so I'm going to go make sure I'm in object mode, Shift A. I'm going to add a cube. Oops, we have to move the cursor to the middle of this. So remember that the cursor is where your object will appear. Shift A, cube. Too big, just scale it down. Grab it, Z, pop it there. And then we're going to rename this 3D this time. And I'll put these commands in the thing so that everyone knows how to make 3D slots now. So basically that's it. We need to make sure that these share the same. Well, actually, no, you don't want the origin point on this to change because that can spawn anywhere. But basically what you need to imagine is that the size of this 3D slot, if you've seen a 3D slot in game, you will be walking into these. It makes this invisible. So you don't need to give this a texture. This will become an invisible wall and your player will hit it. So for example, if it's this big and you try and walk close to the fountain, you're going to hit these invisible walls. So I like to make it like, that's why people often put them in glass things and stuff like that, because as soon as you hit an invisible wall, it breaks that illusion. So what you need to imagine is that the is that the object that you are putting inside, let's just put, oops, sphere, Shift A, UV sphere. The object, doesn't matter how big the object is, if you have an object this big, it will resize it to fit inside of that, and that's the piece that will be spinning. So when you're making 3D objects, 3D slots, you need to be considerate of that. There are a bunch more crazy, weird things that happen with them, but that's the gist of it. That's how to make a 3D slot. All you need to do is make the cube and name it ni_slot -3D or whatever. So same thing here. We're going to return the cursor to world origin. We're going to snap this, keep offset, and we're going to make sure they're selected, and we're going to export it. And that would be how you make a 3D slot and make a slightly more complicated object. Now, there are some really fun tools. I'm probably going to wrap this up really, really soon. There are some super fun tools to add extra complicated shapes and use those shapes to team them up with all of these different walls, using them as different cuts like the gear or the spiral, and I'll show you where these shapes exist. So in object mode, Shift A, you can basically find all of these different things in here. So you've got, let's go geodesic dome, and you can click in here and you can change the frequency of this way up, not too far. Let's go. If you go too far, you will lag. 20. There you go. You've got a geodesic dome. So let's add a few things. Let's go Shift A, torus. All of these items that we're adding right now are all customizable with these pieces here. So everything, thread length, diameter, everything like that. So you can, oops. Now I've accidentally been adding them in edit mode, so they are joined together as one object, but I'll just get them out of the way. What else is there? Let's go pyramids. You can do pyramids. Do well, you can just look at them here. Gears, worms. The gear is fun. So with these shapes, you can do so much. But I'm going to delete them because I want to show you how to make stairs very quickly before we end this. I'm going to go stairs, and you can click stairs, and basically you play around with the number of steps. You can play around with the width, the height, all of the stuff. I want these stairs to snap onto that 4 meter square, or perhaps to a 2 meter, because that way I can take a little bit to get up. So what I can do is just let's change the thickness to 1. Oops, not the thickness. Shift A, stairs. Not the thickness. See you, laser. Thanks for coming. Width. My Blender is starting to lag because I've been doing so many things and I've got the memory saved. So let's just close the slides to make it a solid thing. I'm going to come in here. It comes with a mirror modifier, so I'm going to apply that. And I'm going to go into the properties, item properties, and I'm going to change these to 4 meters. Oops, maybe not the Z. Let's go 2 meters on the Z axis and 4 meters on the X axis. And then we have a square lot of stairs that, when built together, much like the Nifty stairs or the Bloom Cathedral stairs, will come. It doesn't quite. That'll be because of the options in the stairs. You've got to mess around a little bit, but they will sit inside of that same format. And then, of course, when you go to add your snapping points, you would do them to these corners here, and just add the snapping points. There are other things like you will need to fill in the back. using the tools I showed you before, the fill option, stuff like that. So for example, you would be filling those faces, and a lot of these tools to make them to make the objects game ready, you might want to play around and mess around. But the reason I wanted to make you show you stairs is because there's another thing, and a lot of these things are in the creator docs. I want to show you how to make a custom collision. And this is important because you want to be able to run up the stairs or slide down the stairs. You might not want to. You might want to have to jump. I really like smooth stairs. So I'm going to make a custom collision for this. So let's rename these. Oh, they're already stairs. Let's go Shift A, cube. I'm going to look directly on the side. With Z, turn on wireframe so I can see right through. I'm going to grab this and I'm going to put it wherever it perfectly overlaps. So, okay. This box is what we're going to use to basically tell Nifty that you're able to walk directly up. So let's look straight on again. Oops. I'm going to have it, in edit mode. I'm going to select this edge here and come back to the straight on view. I'm going to grab it with G. I'm going to bring it down. Z, 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 boom. Bring it down on the Z axis. Now, we need to turn this off, proportional editing, because it tried to move the bottom bit. So we're bringing it down on the Z. In this case, we want it to be out here and have this to the ground. So what you could do, actually, might even be better to do for this particular unit of stairs. It would be different for, you don't need to do on a ramp, but for these particular stairs, it might actually be a better idea to just cut it like we did that triangle earlier. So I'm actually just going to grab the triangle that we made earlier. Remember, everything is totally flexible. And we're going to go back to this view, grab it, Z, grab it along the Y, and then we're going to make sure it's 4 meters along there. I'm going to tab into edit mode, grab this top edge. We're going to grab it along the Z axis. Now it needs to be above these stairs. So wireframe. You could just do it like this, right? However, I want to not have that jagged bit at the top. So I might do something like, sorry, all this clicking is probably really confusing. Tabbing in edit mode, going Control R, dropping a little piece here so that we can grab this one now. Grab that down. And now we have a box that goes over our stairs, and this is going to be invisible in game. It goes over our stairs and it touches the ground completely, and it touches the top of this. I would clean that up a little bit. Right? There we go. So, and another thing about that is we know that when we duplicate, when we join it together, it's going to snap with that nice little angle on the top. So when you're placing stair after stair after stair in game, you're going to get a perfect ramp, stopping you from having to jump, essentially. And now to make this a custom collision, I'm going to go back here so you can see it. We're going to select this object. We're going to do the same thing as we did with the Nifty, this 3D slot, the 2D slot, and we're going to rename this. We're going to go NI pol for collision. Forgotten what it is. So if you want, I'm going to add this in the thing. We're going to go to creator docs. asset creation info, general modeling, meshes, materials, where is it? Rings, collisions. Here we go. So we're just going to go mesh. So you can just copy that. Pop that in there. So now, not essentially, what's going to happen is see how it's got this material. It's going to be invisible in game so that it doesn't matter, but you don't want it to have a material, so you're going to delete that. I'm going to grab this, get it out of the way. I would give this a material, obviously. Let's just give it this for the hell of it. And we're going to move this back down, and we are going to essentially give them the same origin point. So let's go make sure that the origin is somewhat in the middle of these stairs. We're going to move the cursor to selected, so the cursor is there. We're going to drag this back down, see how its origin points all the way up here. We're going to go object, set origin, origin to 3D cursor. Now both of their origins are in the same place. And before I was bringing it back to the middle, but look at how close it is to the middle. We can just drag it, and then I'm going to export them same way we did before. Selected objects, and boom, that's how you would do it. So that's seamless stairs. And yeah, I guess I should be tying up pretty soon. I wonder if there's anything else in here. Oh yes, one last thing is how to make glass transparent. And this is a topic of debate, I suppose, but I take the easy route, the extremely easy route. I've just done it red because that's the file I had at hand. The easiest route would be, in my opinion, to make it look good and everything like that, is to make a file or download something. It could be anything, and just change the opacity of it a little bit so that you can see through it. I made this particular one for those cool sci-fi sets, so it's kind of like a fade. So I made that myself, and you just have to make sure that you're exporting as a PNG. So, like for example, this light blue one here. Let's just play around and pop that on there. So what I'll do is cursor to selected, just so I know where the thing's going. Shift A, add image as planes. This is just the way that I do it. There's a few ways to texture things. Desktop, what was it called? It was called light blue. Import images as planes. We can grab that, just move it out of the way. And we're going to do the same thing we did before, which is link materials. So we're going to select this one first and the one we're linking to. Control L, link materials. And so all that's done. Let's go on the front view. Let's unwrap this cube projection. Essentially, all that's done is that same material. Actually, I want to do this face projection. So unwrap project from view bounds. That's just given us a basic PNG, and you could add scratches on it or all this stuff just by making a picture, or you could download a picture of glass even and just change the opacity, whatever you like. And then all you need to do is change the metallic value and the roughness value to give it that shine. And depending if you're doing foggy glass or like super reflective glass, that's essentially that's it. That's how you make glass. Same thing, you'd put the snap points where you want it to snap inside of your things, and you would export it just like that. So yeah, I feel like I could continue going into so many realms, but at the same time, I feel like there's a certain amount of information one person can handle or take. If you noticed throughout this whole talk, which has almost been 2 hours, if you noticed from start to finish, I really only used a couple of different techniques. And so to wrap this up, what I want to make sure everyone knows again is there's actually super simple. That really all it is you getting used to navigating this 3D space, and just like any program, that takes a little while. And once you've done that, you just all you're doing is using essentially the same tools over and over again until you know where they are. I like to make key shortcuts. So, for example, like what I did before for the export, if you want to make any shortcuts, you can just come find the thing that you need to do and right click on it and then just change the shortcut to your and bind a new key. That's really helpful for me. But yeah, like this is all super easy stuff. So I'm happy to help anyone that wants to jump in and give this a go. I really would love to see more people learning this. So just for some context, I only started Blender February this year, and I know this all looks pretty simple, but to get the information to do all this stuff, like presented to you in a way that you can use this in Nifty, for example, it's really hard because you're searching on the net for all these different things, and you don't quite know. Well, there's so many amazing tutorials out there, and it's hard to know what you're looking for because you don't know the names of things, etc. So if you forget the names of things, or if you want to ask simple questions, just hit me up. There's a bunch of other people. You can put your questions in the 3D creators channel in Discord, things like that. There's so many avenues for you as people to get into, and I would really and I'd just love to see other people doing this because, like you see this with bricks. Watch how simple it is. Again, suddenly you've made an entire sci-fi set. So that's how easy it is, folk. And yeah, get into it. If you've got questions, hit me up. Thanks so much for having me. I know it's a long yarn, but there's a lot of goods in there. And yeah, thanks Six, thanks Mick Swag, legends.